And we can discuss things between now and then that won't take a quorum. So anyway, let's call the meeting to order at 7:05. Anybody need introductions? We all been here before, I think. If you haven't met Herman Gupta, he's been on the committee a while. I don't know if Laurel, you've been to a meeting with Herman yet.
I've maybe virtually at the beginning, the name sounds familiar, but hi Herman, I'm Laurel.
Yeah.
Well, there's no R in my name, Hemant.
Okay, Hammond, okay.
Oh, sorry. All right, we'll skip number 3, approval of minutes, until we have a quorum. So under older business, I did call Philip Johnson today just to get a couple of tidbits of what's currently new at WRTD. And he gave me just 3 or 4 things. He said that they had adjusted the Hunting Lodge Road to the Depot campus route that no longer stops at the train station center because they were getting complaints that the lap was too long. And so they've shortened the lap, and he says he hasn't had any complaints since then. So apparently that was an okay adjustment. He said that since the Mansfield Apartments is under construction, he's going to realign that route, the red route, I guess. Doesn't affect us so much as Yukon, but he's just going to realign that a little bit. And he said that Gilbert Road, because of construction, is going to be, over the next 2 years, is going to be one way, sometimes one way, and one way the other way, other days.
So like North Eagleville, when they did that.
Yeah, he said it would depend, on construction, but that they were planning to do that, and also use Bolton Road as an alternate in some cases. And he said the new routes that we've talked about for a while will probably take place in February. The all new route distribution. So that's what the news is from WRTD. Next, on the bicycle master plan update, we revised map number 4, what's this, to show the new projects on top of the existing projects. I think that was one of Laurel's suggestions a meeting or 2 ago.
Yeah,
Right. So now you can see, by the legend, you can see on this map what exists, and then these projects over here that are proposed, and they're proposed on different timelines as in the plan itself. So since we're not all here around the table, I would just encourage you to go to the DPW website
okay,
and click on the draft plan and scroll down to map number 4, and that will have all as the project listing here and the legend over here for the existing and the proposed. Because the planner is new and she's got a whole big workload just to get caught up, I haven't been bugging her too much about her review of the plan, but in the next probably early January, we'll ask Jennifer to weigh in and what her edits are and so on, so that we don't miss this opportunity, since she has contributed some things to it as well.
I mean, Lon, do you want us to bring it up for you, or you want to?
I was bringing it up, but you said it's at Department of Public Works, and then where?
The DPW page of the town's website.
Mhm.
yeah, if you go down to bike pedestrian Or it's like under topics of interest, and
Yeah.
then it's on the bottom of that.
There's a
Okay.
list on the front page
Okay,
that has the plan, and you can click on that plan. It's a PDF. And that'll download it.
okay.
So we still have probably at least a month to incorporate other changes that anyone thinks ought to be in, which, you know, there's certainly no pride of authorship as long as they're relative, we'll try to accommodate it. All right. So what I did is if you'll pull up the PowerPoint. I made a 11 slide PowerPoint explaining a little rating system that I went through to look at road segments in Mansfield that could be complete streets. And we've been talking about this, you know, for a couple of meetings. And it won't take too long to go through this. It's pretty simple. And hopefully it will lead us into some discussion about, you know, what roads make sense to be complete streets. Do you need handouts or you're
No,
okay with
okay.
it? Okay. So anyways, the first slide here, I'll just read some of these: evaluation and rating complete street candidates, a way to evaluate road segments in town for being a complete street. So here's the 8 factors that I considered, and I made this.
Alex has joined us.
Oh, good. What's Alex's last name?
Good evening. Sorry for arriving late.
No problem. Thank you for coming. So the second slide lists the rating factors that I used in this spreadsheet. And they were the number of pedestrians using or potentially using the road segment, number of bicyclists using it, traffic volume, traffic speed, important access to schools, public buildings, shopping, points of interest, employment and or recreation. Then geographics, in other words, right of way and limitations, and is there room if the road segment needs to be expanded. Then location equity. In other words, does the location of the segment serve underserved populations? Things like lower income housing, students, and so on. And finally, are there other agencies involved, either on the plus side, who would be somebody who would be easy to work with, or on the minus side, somebody who I hate to use them as an example, but the DOT is sometimes hard to work with if you want to change anything on a state highway.
What? I never heard that before.
You never heard that before? All right. So then each of the rating of those factors now, I assigned a fairly arbitrary scale of 1 to 5. And they went through something like this: number of pedestrians, 1, not so many; 5, lots of pedestrians. Number of bicyclists, which was the second one; 1, hardly any; and 5, a lot on most days. Then moving on to traffic volume, same idea. High traffic got a 1, low traffic got a 5. Traffic speed, again, high speed only got a 1, low speed got a 5. Continuing on the ratings. Important access to schools, buildings, shopping, points of interest, employment, and recreation. 1, a low score would mean that there was not a lot of important accesses, you know, places that the road either gets you to or transverses. And 5 would be where there's lots of important accesses. And then the geographic right-of-way limitations, again, scale 1 to 5. 1, there's no room and right-of-way would be very difficult to obtain. 5, plenty of space or a public-owned right-of-way. Again, the rating is scaled from 1 to 5, so a segment might have a 2 or a 4 or a 3 or a 5 or a 1. And the last rating scale would be the location equity. Does the location serve any underserved populations? 1, no. 5, yes, and maybe even more than 1. And then other agency involvement. Score of 1 if there's multiple agencies or some agencies that are difficult to deal with. And 5, a good score would be agencies that, no agencies other than the town or very cooperative ones.
Can you go back to, let's see, the next one maybe. The third page. How do you define, I think it was the right of way. How do you define like difficult to obtain right of way? Is that like homeowners essentially, or?
Let me think. Difficult to obtain would be, yes, owned by private concerns or companies, or even a homeowners, whereas public owned would be easier to get because even if the state owns it, there are ways to get them to grant right away for municipal projects. So I guess
The example is like that Spring Hill Road that's right by the middle school, but there's no space to expand, right? So that, because it's somebody's house, so it's a narrow road and there's no place to go. Is that a good example, Lon?
the Spring Hill segment in front of the middle school is pretty wide. The road is very
She means
wide.
after you turn.
I mean, after you turn, like before Mansfield's, like the part that connects to Mansfield City, that part's really narrow.
Yeah, I agreed. And
Right. I'm
I-
just saying that might be a good example because it's private property on either side. So we've talked about expanding that one before and it's not.
right, that would be difficult, right? That's a good analogy. Okay, so here are the 17 segments that I put on the spreadsheet. I think some of those were on the list that we looked at before. There's 17 of them. And again, Spring Hill Road is just a section in front of the middle school. Dog Lane is just the section in the downtown. North Eagleville Road is just the section from Bone Mill up to the campus. So I didn't describe them all perfectly, but there are some limitations on some of these things. So then next is just a picture of the spreadsheet. Now, what I did is I brought the real spreadsheet along with my handouts here, but the spreadsheet is available as an Excel spreadsheet, and anybody who wants to actually look at it and mess around with the ratings or whatever, I'm happy to send it to you, and or one of these guys can, because I sent it to them earlier today. But for now, so we don't spend a lot of time on the minutia of why is this a 2 instead of a 3 or a 5 instead of a 4. I thought it would be helpful just to show you a picture of it, and then show you what the scores and the rankings ended up using the criteria, the rating section that I just did. And so here's what happened. The highest point total was 33 after you figure all the way across the spreadsheet, and the lowest was 15.5. And so the things that came out on the top were Spring Hill Road, Dog Lane, Bolton Road, Hunting Lodge Road, Route 44 and 195 northwest of the Four Corners, where that new development is going in, Maple Road, South Eagleville Road, and Wilbur Crossway and Royce Circle. So that's kind of what, I mean, this is intuitive. And if you look at these, you could say, okay, yeah, that one makes sense and that one doesn't. So this is just my way of kind of quantifying that a little bit. So some of the comments that I have here is obviously this scheme reflects the bias of the rater. And anyone can insert their own ratings into the biases and get different results. And if you want to do that on the spreadsheet, just go ahead. I will get you the spreadsheet and you're
I can send
welcome
it
to.
No, these numbers 1 to 5, do they have any significance? Like, for example, you see first rating is a number of pedestrian. 1 is not so many, 5 is a lot.
Yeah.
So is there
Is
any
there-
good or bad or?
Well, I mean, take an example. Right now on Maple Road, there's very few pedestrians.
Hmm.
And right now on Dog Lane, there's lots of pedestrians. Okay,
Mhm.
so,
Well, the reason I'm bringing this issue is that out of 8 criteria,
mhm,
5 of them have 1 is assigned to low and 5 is assigned to high, but 3 of them is reversed. Like traffic volume, 1 is high,
Yeah,
oh yeah, but high is
Negative.
bad for,
so that's what I'm asking. Is it
yeah, high
bad
is
or-
bad for being a complete
Okay,
street.
yeah, that's what my question is.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, all right.
but
So
what about, like, that one is a tricky situation, because if you were to develop a complete street, there are opportunities to slow people down.
Yes.
So that was a question I kind of had with the traffic speed and traffic volume, is like,
Yep.
is the traffic volume, or like, it's easy to rank volume and speed from, it's very objective numbers, but when it comes into like the opportunity of like, do we want to slow traffic down on this road if it has a better potential pedestrian, like there's kind of like chicken before the egg type.
I agree. Take a look at the last slide. Okay, if you could put that up. 2 more. All right, so I tried to address that a little bit here.
Okay.
For example, skim down here to Hunting Lodge Road serves a student population, has an off-road path, but would need traffic calming. Right, because their traffic goes pretty quick on Hunting Lodge Road. Also, with the sidewalks and paths fronting and connecting the new development northwest of Four Corners, these sections of 195 and 44 could be complete streets if the traffic was calmed significantly. And I think I say the same thing about South Eagleville Road, that with significant traffic calming, medians, roundabouts, and so on, it could be a complete street from Cypress Road up to 195. So yes, that definitely figures in, and there are some when we consider what to do with each one, or whether they rank high or low, we have to take into account what the traffic is now and what the possibilities are of making the traffic more manageable, both in terms of speed and volume. Okay.
I think what you did, Lon, is you gave us a snapshot of today, what would be the easier roads to construct a complete street. Where the other ones, maybe they become higher priority, they're gonna cost more because we have to do the traffic calming. things
Yeah,
like that.
right.
So
So I guess that, that the last 2 slides here, I'm just trying to bring out some discussion points on some of these higher ranked,
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe that's where the speed or the traffic volume gets a little bit confusing in the ranking mix, because you've called out some really good points in the reflection
right.
and comments here.
Yeah.
But, to me, I think you look at, like John just said, like the snapshot of now, and then like you did have in your kind of rankings, like the potential for more pedestrians or the potential for more cyclists.
Right. Right.
Or the potential for increased connectivity, that would be one thing to look at from a map perspective. Like, I don't know if bus stops or other elements were considered in the ranking for the like the places it served or the people or the underserved
Well, that's
rankings too.
possibly that you bring up a good point. Quite possibly there ought to be another element of the rankings about connections to public transportation. I mean, that would make sense to me. And then if you've got like South Eagleville Road, which has at least one bus stop on it, and maybe two if you count the one up Maple, that would get a 5 for public transportation. And some of the other ones would get a lower score because if they didn't have public transportation. So that's a very good point.
I also think you could like kind of delineate, and some of this may be in your thoughts, but we've talked a little bit before about this is maybe we need a big Venn diagram as well, but you could also delineate between like what could be a like bike share versus bike lane versus sidewalk versus like protected bike lane versus like off-street protected path. There's like there's different, some of those might be easier than others on different sections of road, but they all can improve transportation, even without being a quote unquote complete streets. You can do incremental improvement.
Yeah, well, and some of the things that I was thinking about, which you'll see in the notes, were that, you could make Dog Lane, the first section of Dog Lane, you could make that one way. Royce Circle could be made one way or the other. I'm not sure which would be the most advantageous, but if you did that, then it'd be easier to put a bike lane or even, some direct accommodation for bike lanes.
Lon, is there a possibility within Mansfield? Like, I know I'm from San Jose, California, and they do like in the morning, these streets are one way this way, and at night, these streets are one way this way. Like, is there any history of doing that within Connecticut, or is that just a never going to happen idea?
I don't know.
Never heard of it, but it would definitely take some police force at the beginning to make sure people get it right. And that's
There are some flex lanes in New Haven on that little stretch of road that connects the highway with the city. I forget the route number.
Yeah, Hartford is the same way coming off of Founder's Bridge off of 84.
Yeah.
I think you have something
But
where
it's strictly for volume of cars, not
The lanes change. Yeah, well, that's a good point too, but I guess what I was hoping is that we would look at some of these segments and say, well, this could still be done if we did blank. And then, it's kind of up to the engineers to say, well, okay, let's look at that and see if that's a reasonable thing to do. I mean, for example, the roundabout on Separatist Road at 275
Mhm.
would start the traffic calming, and another one at Maple would complete it, and some islands along the way there, and you could make a good complete street out of that whole section, but you really need to calm the traffic. And some of those roads, as I commented in the downtown, they instead of putting in bike lanes, they put in wide sidewalks. That was their thing. And those of us in the town at the time, we had no choice. That was the design was done. It'd already been to the traffic authority. So now we're kind of stuck with these wide sidewalks. But I looked at Wilbur Crossway today, and it's pretty wide. There's actually room to do something with bicycles there. And certainly if you one way Royce Circle, there's a way to put a bike lane in. So I don't think just because it exists the way it is that we couldn't be creative. That's all. Anyway, I guess this will kind of hopefully inform us all as we talk about the coming budgets and what's, what projects are being done and how they work into our complete streets framework.
Lauren,
But-
I just want to say I'm amazed at how much work you put into this, and I really appreciate you organizing all of this so that we could have this type of conversation. I mean, that was a lot of work, and I appreciate what you put into that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When the traffic advisory committee was first formed, we had a bunch of spreadsheets evaluating controversial projects that the town was tripping over. And we tried to give the council some data on, does this make sense or not? So it's not a new idea. Anyway, I have, I'm more than willing to modify. You have the spreadsheet now. Help yourself to, if you want to play with it, go ahead. But, let's push on. The other thing is, of course, if I've missed some segments that you really think are important, we should get that on our list, so that we're looking at all kinds of stuff.
I just wish there was a way, and I know I keep bringing this up, but to get the people from Mansfield City Road over to either the middle school or to Yukon, because that's such a huge volume of people, because there's so many people with kids from Jonathan Lane or I can't remember the name of the, but there's a lot of apartment complexes and a lot of condos out there. And so there's all these people at there, and that area is too small, but like, is there another way that we could get it bike safe or something to get the kids from there or the people from there? Because that traffic is ridiculous in the morning and then in the afternoon, if you've ever been there. And I don't know if this is the place for that or if there's some other place to consider that. But if you ever drive by there between 7 and 9 in the morning, there's buses, there's kids, there's parents dropping off, there's people trying to get to Yukon, and it's really a congested area.
Oh, so much change. I have lived on that road for many years, but that was many, many years ago.
Maybe we have to reopen Dunham Pond Road on.
Well, I think
Are
that's,
you talking about the intersection of Mansfield City and like Spring Hill and like that? I
So
mean,
right now, that Spring Hill, that narrow segment of Spring
Yeah.
Hill is really the bottleneck, right? I mean,
Okay.
there's so many people coming there. And again, I brought this up before, there's not really a way to widen that street. But if we're talking about a road, like there's a lot of kids biking and stuff, even during, after school or whatever, there's a lot of people on bikes out there. And how do we safely get them from that road or that area to the rest of, to the rest of the area? I don't necessarily have an answer, but I just, I would like to see some, some solution. I don't have the idea, but trying to get a way to get, because there are a lot of kids out there trying to get to middle school, people trying to get to the high school, and there's a lot of people driving back and forth through there all the time. And it's not, I mean, I did not ever let my kids bike to school because it's not a safe, that there's that one maybe quarter of a mile path that's just not safe.
Yeah.
well, when the path on North Eagleville Road from the edge of the campus to Northwood Apartments was put in, there were trees right along the edge of the road like Spring Hill. So the design of the path went basically on the other side of the trees, away from the road. And it had to wind around some, and some trees came out, but it's not impossible to put a separate path on the property side of the trees. It's just a pain in the neck because you have to buy the right of way, and you have, you have some tree removals, and it's expensive construction because it's, when you end up in people's yards, then, you end up having to compensate for stuff. But, if that's a priority that is really missing, it could be looked at. As far as I can tell, it's definitely not impossible.
It
Well,
just,
I-
it meets all of your criteria except hard to get to, right? Because it's an area where there could potentially be a lot of walkers or bikers. There are some, but not very many, because you know, looking at the size of this road, if there's a school bus and a bicycle, there's not.
Yeah.
It's not a good idea. But I don't know. I mean, I think there are a lot of people, and I don't want to be the only source for this, but I do think there are a lot of people on that side with kids. You know, you've got Puddin Lane, you've got Jonathan Lane, you've got White Oak Apartments, and there's a lot of people that have kids that are coming in that direction, I think.
Right. Well, the other place where that happened, where there was a lot of need, was on Hunting Lodge Road. And Hunting Lodge Road, there's I think it's an 8-foot separate path. Had to buy right away all the way, and it ended up being right in people's yards. Separatist Road was that way to some extent too. We spent a lot of time talking with people about replacing apple trees, you know, that were going to be in the way, because that's the only place it could go. So it's not impossible, let's put it that way, but it is expensive and difficult.
I mean, I think one of the problems with Spring Hill is it's having run and bike on that many times. There's also no shoulder and there's poor lines of sight. So
Right.
that quarter-mile section that is very unsafe, which I agree with, is, you know, that even if there was a potential, I mean, I don't know how much right away you have to buy to widen it enough to get a shoulder without increasing traffic speeds too, because you don't want people going 60 miles an hour around a wider road. But the, you know, again, from a incremental improvement, like even if there was a way to create a safer shoulder on that road as a starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I say all the time, engineers can do anything. Sometimes it's just gonna be expensive, but I mean, and then you gotta, there may be people in town that say this is the rural character they want. So, you know, everybody
Yeah.
might say we want that complete street. There may be people that live on this road that would be up in arms. And that's what we gotta figure out, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the sad thing is, like, you know, I see people that the new traffic speed monitors on South Eagleville, you know, you see people talking about setting their high score and people just don't care. They're like it's very frustrating. It's like, oh, now something's gonna track my speed. I'm gonna see how fast I can go. And you're always gonna have those outliers, but you know, when it comes to buying right of way, that's a different conversation, because you're going to have more serious blockage if people are not willing to give up their frontage.
And there's a lot
And
of,
so did I see, Lon, you didn't have Mansfield City on the plan, right? Like just the Mansfield City Road itself?
No, Mansfield City is a bike route up to Spring Hill,
Right,
but north of Spring Hill, it's not.
right, okay.
Are there restrictions on scenic roads too? Like, aren't some of the roads in and around there scenic roads? I know Chafeeville might be.
Spring Hill is not but yeah,
Browns Road is.
Browns Road is,
Mansfield City Road going to Willimantic, probably that part is scenic.
I don't think so.
no,
It's not.
it is, to the eye, it's scenic, but the town is not declared it
Yeah,
scenic.
Are there restrictions on town designated scenic roads?
Yes,
well, I think both the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Town Council have to okay anything on those roads that has to do with anything over maintenance.
Gotcha. Thank you.
my first summer here at Dog Lane Eversource was doing some trimming. And they wanted to take down a lot of trees and had to go in front of planning and zoning, and they did not get to take those trees down. And I don't know if you know that real hairpin turn at Dog Lane. I mean, there's a tree right there. Nope, the neighborhood fought for it and those trees are still there.
Yeah. Right, well, so anyway, I mean, the next complete streets, and this is a good segue into our complete street planning and proposed transportation projects. Really have to kind of pick the low hanging fruit first and develop those so that people see that they work. And then we can, the town can branch into doing more of those, so. Why don't we go ahead and turn it over to Derek and or John to talk about transportation projects that are either now in the queue or plan to be in the queue.
Probably the map is easier to consume.
Who assigned these numbers?
I did,
Oh, you did.
yeah, and so there's nothing magic about it. It's only what
Okay, this is your assessment.
yes, that's it. Yes,
Write it down.
and I'm
I thought you did.
more
too. I think
than
it's on
welcome
the-
to have
It's on
somebody
the just.
say that should be a 3 instead of a 4, But the idea was to try to get some projects
Some-
rise to the
right.
top.
Initial.
Yep.
Oh, you know what, there's two.
That's the same thing.
Do you want to really quickly approve the minutes? I make a motion to approve the minutes from the
Okay.
last meeting.
It's a good idea.
Can I vote?
Yeah.
I was not there.
Yeah, you can. It's the body approves the minutes, not the individuals. So that was Kristen. Hemmon.
I mean,
I'm,
you never.
Apologies.
on that, but-
yeah, I know. I've been
you-
calling you Armin for like 5 years. Okay, all's in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Derek went to grab a USB for the map because I failed to
Okay.
copy it, I guess.
I heard on the radio this morning that Connecticut got like a disproportionately large amount of infrastructure funding compared to other states. It was like $1,680 a citizen. I was just curious if we have like a breakdown like that for Mansfield. I don't know if they've done it that far, but it was like Connecticut as a whole was like, $1,600 or $1,700 a citizen, and New England as a whole was higher, but a lot of places in the United States were more like $1,200 a citizen.
Yeah, that won't be broken down to, it'll go to, well, the state will divvy it up. If it goes to DOT, then it'll go to each council of government. And then they'll determine,
Okay.
it's not,
Yeah, I just thought that was an interesting stat, like the breakdown by citizen.
I wonder if you normalize that to the cost of infrastructure across the country, it's actually less.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's-
I would just imagine it costs a lot more to, pave or build in the Northeast, and then like California compared to
Hmm.
middle America, things tend to be cheaper.
Right. It's, I think that there's some pretty expensive bridges in that. The state, is redoing some of the big bridges that it has, and then it's gonna use up a lot of the allocation.
so we got the plan for 5 years paving project. It's color coded. This is assuming we get funded properly, but well, maybe the Excel would be easier to see.
Yeah, maybe what? Yeah, you do the Excel spreadsheet.
All right, so what is the first year? What color?
First year is an orange, so we'll finish the section of Browns Road west of Chatham to Route 32. Davis Road, Monticello, Fallon. And we had programmed Spring Hill, but maybe based on the discussion, maybe further, maybe that should be revised at this point in time.
Which part of Spring Hill?
The section we were just discussing between Mansfield City and
Oh.
Clover Mill.
Okay.
This was just a resurfacing project at this point in time, but
Right.
again,
Um, from a pedestrian and bicycle point of view, do your repaving projects take into account any of those things? For example, curbs, gutters, or other things that make it difficult for a pedestrian and or a cyclist to get off the road? I mean, those things get cranked into how the actual projects are implemented.
I would say the only road that may see curbing is Felon, most likely. And that's because of its grade. And
Okay.
a portion of Davis where we have a grade problem, where our grade is probably. in
Yeah,
excess of
there's not a lot of
10%.
traffic and those are both pretty wide.
Right.
So they're
So,
pretty safe.
so on Davis Road, we are gonna try a splitter island as a traffic calming measure in a straightaway, because we did exceed the 85th percentile. And in lieu of doing a speed hump, we wanted to try a splitter island, and that still hasn't gone before traffic authority. It's kind of conceptual at this point in time. Will
Like-
its impact would be.
Okay.
So I put up the spreadsheet showing the estimated costs. So up here, the values for the hot mix asphalt. Curbing. And reclaiming, paving, so. Based on the width of the road, length of the road. And that's. So this does not include any drainage, replacing or installing any drainage. Since those are, this part is already funded to some degree because of inflation, it probably won't have enough to cover all of it. The fiscal year 22-23, the coming year has to go before budget. Asking for 1.7, which is higher than normal. It's not higher than last year because we had some enhanced pilot the town did, but now that's all been used. So now that's the new norm. So I don't know what the new norm will be for paving funding, but the council's been very supportive of the paving funds. So I think we can still acquire this amount of money. Maple Road is under the grant. Probably won't get put in because it involves the state. It does slow down the process a lot. So I don't know if we'll see that next summer or not. Probably not.
Probably not. I mean, I think it's worth noting, so from the previous fiscal year to this past fiscal year, asphalt prices went up 20%. So the previous year were about $86 a ton, and now we're up to almost $103 per ton at the end of this past year.
As highlighted in blue are the scenic road areas. And we're not sure about Gurleyville because the bridge in Gurleyville may get replaced, so.
Yeah, we were keeping it to Bundy Lane.
Yeah,
So
so
it's
it's
just accommodate that in the future once the bridge gets replaced.
That's why it's not the whole length, it's just the upper portion.
Right.
Towards Yukon.
If the paving that you're put down, let's say per lane, is like 12 feet.
Mhm.
Can you make it so that the actual lane widths are like 9 feet? And so that there's a 3-foot shoulder for bikes and pedestrians? I mean, it's not wide enough to be considered a bike lane.
Right.
But if you're, and some of these roads won't even be striped, but something like Browns Road. If you had the width without making it wider. Is there a way you could make it so that it's better for bikes and pedestrians that when you do the overlay? I mean,
I mean, looking at the lengths here along the 22, so 27 is the largest and 11-foot lane. If you go any tighter than that, I think you're getting.
Yeah, some of these wouldn't qualify as a very low volume road. Low volume being under 400, arguably 2,000 vehicles per day, but you could go to a 9-foot lane and you'd end up with a 2-foot shoulder. With our experience on Eastwood, when we did narrow the roadway, we saw speeds go up without the speed hump there on Eastwood. So we went to a 9.5 foot lane, I believe.
Just the argument is that you have a white line and a yellow line, now they know where they're at and they can go faster. So
Yeah, well,
you would think narrow road they go slower, but there's studies out there that show that painting the white line actually makes them go faster.
you mean the shoulder line?
Yes, shoulder
Yeah.
line.
Fog line.
Yeah, the fog strip, yeah. Well, I know, it just seems like we have a lot of people walking on the roads these days, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
More than there used to be.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's a result of COVID or that we're all getting older and we need to walk more. But I just think we should try to look at creative ways of, you know, being able to use more of the road for other than cars, that's all.
Absolutely.
Now we're open to ideas.
I mean, quite honestly, there's no. It's been past practice to have a center line on any of our collector roads that exceed 30 miles an hour. It's not necessarily required. I'm not sure how that would be float through the community. People get very uneasy even when we had them just recently paved and didn't get a center line down for a couple weeks.
Some of the older drivers like the lines. Helps them see, especially at night.
Yeah, yeah.
My father always called that line, that's just for the attorneys to figure out who's at fault in an accident.
Okay, well,
But
Yeah.
I mean, there's a list, I assume. Budget usually kicks off in December, I have to get my request to the manager probably February or March. Depends, this year it may change, we're going to a new open. Is it OpenGov or ClearGov?
Clear enough.
ClearGov format. I'll also put up, but here's all the capital I'm looking at for next year. Which the number, taking away 2 vehicles that aren't in public works, I'm at 4.2 million. I've never gotten 4.2 million. I don't think we've ever gotten 3 million. Maybe last year when they gave us an extra 1.1, but there's a lot of other things out there that I need to take care of as public works director that impacts what we can do. So if the committee wants to come back and decide, you know, do something different, maybe we pave less, but we do more for those roads. You know, we spend the same amount of money, but we're doing more to put something in.
Are these all like 1.5-inch overlays that are planned?
It's full depth reclamation, so you're going in,
Okay.
Recycling.
recycling the material, establishing a better base, because a road at this point fails because of its base, so you got to rebuild the base.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not a true reconstruction, because of reconstruction, you take out curves and straighten it out and all that. And like Maple Road will be a reconstruction. That's why it's.
right. What's the third thing, or the downtown loop closure project, is it we talked about before?
That's the walkway on the Hunting Lodge Road extension to connect Separatist to Hunting Lodge Road bike path. So that's our contribution to the state.
Right, that's the
Yeah,
the
and then,
piece by the Quaker Meeting House,
yeah, and then a
yeah.
piece over here on 275 from Maple down to Separatist.
and those are matches.
Yeah.
Don, can you move your screen? Because I think I'm still looking at the asphalt, the repaving.
All right.
Maybe just stop the share. Because there's a different screen now,
I'll stop.
and then reshare it.
Sorry.
That's all right. Sorry. I thought you guys were looking at what I was looking at.
Thank you for saying that, because I actually was thinking, I was trying to find where you were pointing and
Right,
So you see that now?
Yeah, thanks.
So this hasn't been seen by my boss or anything yet. This is just my, very draft initial plan. In my priority order, because I usually get asked for that too, but. These are other things besides road resurfacing, number one, other things I have to spend. dollars on to either equip the department or take care of things in town that need to be taken care of. And something's gonna get cut out of this, because I'll be shocked if I get $4.28 million for capital improvement.
Well, if we wanted to make Dog Lane and or Royce Circle complete streets by making them one way. Would you need a separate project for that in this list? Or could you take it out of, one of the, like the road resurfacing drainage item?
Yeah, without looking at to me, it just sounds like it's signage and paint, and I don't know if we're taking away parking on one side of the street, because I worry about parking, people backing out, but.
Yeah,
Well, there's a lot of things to worry about. I'm just.
Yeah, well,
wondering-
it isn't in my projection, but I would, I'd rob from one to pay for the other.
I'd probably want to increase the curb returns in order to force that circulation pattern. So I could see some sidewalk money being needed for that
Right,
as well.
right, everything. It hasn't even
I mean,
Yeah.
been
I can
looked
take
at yet.
the
for-
25,000 out of storage center improvement, I'd take it out of there, because that was to do the stamp crosswalks that, need to be
Yeah,
redone. And
yeah.
There's other places I can take it out of.
Right.
I mean, I think the splitter island is a really interesting opportunity, and I wonder where that is on, like, from a timing standpoint. That goes back to your other slide, but from a timing standpoint, like, if that proved successful, could you put that in other repaving projects? Because it does make sense to do it all at once while you're already tearing up a road.
That is scheduled. We hope to do that this spring, because our fiscal year is July 1st to June 30th. So that's this year's money. We hope to get,
Okay,
this April, May, June.
Mhm.
And then based on how that goes, things that are scheduled to do after July 1st, that would be in this 1.9 million. If there's an area we could put it in on one of those roads on the other
right.
sheet.
Mhm.
Which
Well,
I'll go back to that.
Congratulations for coming up with some, new ideas to calm traffic, because we certainly need some things that work that don't cost $5 million a piece.
Right.
Yeah. Where do we stand on the roundabout? Well, we're on $5 million.
Traffic comments.
But for the community challenge grant, we went out to did an RFQ, request for qualifications, with engineering firms. We had 5 people that we interviewed. We cut it down to 3. Then we got their prices from 3 of those. We sent that off to the state, waiting for the state to approve. And in that is the boulevard concept for 275 and the roundabout at Maple, at least considering it in design. Whether we'll have the funds for it, we'll see if the community
Okay.
comes through. We also met with the town manager and the local politicians, state senator, state representative, to talk about Four Corners, because there's always been a project we've been trying to get with Representative Courtney to go from Four Corners up to the Yukon sign to get a path there. And we also said, well, if we're going to do that, let's look at 2 roundabouts there, because you need a roundabout at 44, 195, and then there'd have to be one at 320. But again, we told them, we're probably looking at, for those 2 roundabouts, 7 million. So we're trying to find money for those things. And I did send something off to the state asking, for their help. I haven't heard back, which doesn't surprise me, but I think they're looking for communities that want to do roundabouts. They're trying to do one in Norwich, where their community has stopped it right now because it was going to take 5 businesses, and just, it was going to be chaotic during construction, so it didn't have support. But we like this, and we hope we can get it. Should have brought a picture of it.
It's on the USB.
Okay.
Is it?
Yeah.
Maybe I can pull it up.
Yep.
For that Four Corners development that they're doing, is there anything that the state's making them do as far as major traffic generation with respect to complete street?
the standard that's being built does have a bike lane that the state is making them put in,
But it's not unconnected essentially.
basically, but it's a start.
Yeah, I think that's the concern with like 195, to your point, Alex, like how does the increased traffic generation?
I was hoping maybe the new development would fund the rest of it or something.
Well, the new development has to fund some walkways, right?
So they're putting the walkways in front of their property, along their frontage. They, it's really a challenge to do off-site things that are not directly related. The current projections for level of service in that area don't trigger a threshold with DOT. They remain at the level D. So that's as of the last project. But
So with that, with the project to do the walkway from CVS up to the Yukon sign, we thought, be perfect place for 2 roundabouts. A road safety audit we did 6 years ago suggested a roundabout at 44 and 195. Unfortunately, because of its proximity to 320, you have to put that other one in. Otherwise, you'd have queuing at the light into the roundabout. But I think this would be, it would just keep traffic calm and it would keep it moving instead of having the ugly 5-lane intersection. But it's expensive, so we're trying to get some funding for it. And with all the development that's scheduled to go there, I think it would definitely be, it would change the scenery.
Mhm.
Was there any exploration of like rerouting 320 to make a single roundabout? I don't know if that would help cost here at all.
We thought about that, how you could take it around.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's other options. This was just,
get something in.
get something in so they see.
Right. Gotcha.
That's good.
yeah, I like this. There, coming from planning and zoning, there's another development that's further down 44. I'm pointing to the map, but
South.
yeah, and that one, one thing that worries me about that one is that then it's just like another, the way I think they've updated the ingress and egress, but at one point there just was adding like ingress and egress onto 44 kind of in the same area near like the Discovery light, like we're talking further
That would
Yeah,
maybe go
further west.
west on this map. But that, that one is still more in consideration, but again, like to your point, Alex, like minimizing the number of
Mhm.
touch points and
share. We're pulling up the map.
okay.
I think these 2 parcels, Laurel, I think you're
Yeah,
looking at a tree farm. Yeah.
There's also, there's gonna be apartments with the toast, so over here, the standard is this area, and then there's gonna be here, so that's why having the roundabout, there's gonna be a lot more pedestrians all of a sudden, because they're gonna walk to these establishments, so putting the roundabouts in for safety and slowing people down. So,
If you talk to those establishments, they're very much counting on those people walking to their establishments.
yes.
Right.
So as we saw if you saw the Chronicle today, that 4 a.m, somebody was doing 60 on that road, so traffic calming is needed.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I think that's the concern about pedestrians to campus or cyclists to campus is like, how many of them are really going to reroute them to the path on Discovery? I mean, maybe the people in the, the tree farm lot there might be more likely to take Discovery, but you're just going to have increased potential access
Mhm.
on 195 too.
Absolutely.
yep. All right, thank you. Let's keep thinking about, keep thinking out of the box here. We want to keep complete streets and use of facilities for everybody. So it looks, some of these ideas are looking good. We need to just implement some of them and have them be successful so they'll catch on. All right, so the last thing on the agenda is just active transportation update. The Yukon Active Transportation Study has been done and there's the link to it right there. It's a very detailed, long report. I haven't been able to get through it. I printed out the summary page and there is a lot to it.
Mhm.
So if you're interested in what's going on the Yukon Active Transportation, download that report and look at it. It's pretty extensive. And then Yukon amazingly did get designated by the League of American Bicyclists as a bicycle-friendly university. You know, we had misgivings about that because on the one hand, if you ride your bike on the campus, you know it's not really all that friendly. But on the other hand, they now have an excuse to improve their infrastructure because they are bicycle friendly. So using the active transportation plan and that Corey Clark, who's worked on their work and submitted the application and so on, is feeling good about that. So hopefully they'll make some progress and that'll rub off on us. And as far as our bicycle friendly community renewal application, we sent it in, but I haven't heard anything. Have you heard anything?
We haven't heard
No, we haven't heard anything yet as to whether we got renewed or not. All right, any other business or reports? Okay, our next meeting should be in early January, right? The
May,
first quarter.
usually it's just, we say second Thursday, right? That is 13th January.
Is that
But
right?
I will request it to prepone it 1 week, make it February 6th if everybody's,
Postpone it a month,
no,
a
prepone it
week.
a week, prepone, 6th.
Oh, January
January
6th.
Well, 6th is a Friday, so
Oh, 6th is a Friday,
Well, wait a minute. If it's the 13th,
or 5th will be fine, 6th, 5th.
you want to go up a week
No, I want to go before,
before.
because again, I'm traveling. I could not attend the October meeting because it was postponed, you know.
all right, well, let's just take a quick look here and see what we got. In January, so the meeting would be the second Thursday, which is the 12th.
So, okay, so 5th. can be-
So the 5th would be one, otherwise we could go a week later, the 19th.
No, I'm
Oh,
going
you're-
for, I'm going for couple of months.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
That's actually better for me too. I mean, but
Does it have to be 7 o'clock? Is earlier better too? I don't know what,
earlier is better, yes.
I have no problem with things, yeah.
I don't know.
how early is too early?
If we're on at a Thursday. Or if we're going back to Thursdays, 6 o'clock is okay.
It's better for me.
Better for you, your
Yeah.
6 is okay with you, how about you, Alex? And Laurel?
Yeah,
I'm
that's
interested.
fine.
All right,
It-
6 PM on the 5th.
And we may be able to just change the calendar, so it doesn't have to be a special meeting, not that,
That's true.
because it's still early. enough
Well,
to
let's-
change the calendar.
Let's vote to change the regular meeting that's on our calendar to January 5th instead of the 13th, and then we'll go the second Thursdays for the rest of the year. And that way we don't have to have a special meeting, which means we can talk about or act on whatever we want.
I would move to make that change.
Okay?
Mhm.
So that's Kristen.
Although I kind of like the 6 PM, if other people are okay with the 6 PM instead of the 7.
I don't think the time matters, does it?
I think the one we passed before says 7, but you can always change the time as long
Yeah.
as it's the same day.
Right.
That's
Okay,
24-hour notice that you change the time, I believe, but
Maybe we can just refile it with the clerk.
I mean, if we want to change it every 1 to 6, we can do that too, but
I will prefer 6.
Anybody object to 6? Then let's change them all, okay? All right, so we got moved by Kristen, second by Hammond. All those in favor of the changes? Okay. Done, and that way you can change it, if it's not too late with the clerk, you
It
can.
shouldn't be, because you got to the end of
Right,
January. I
yeah.
believe.
and then we'll make it on the 5th.
Very good.
All right,
Thank you very much.
any other business? If not, thank you all for coming, we'll adjourn.
Happy
Thank
holidays.
you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays, everyone.
All right. Thank you, folks, for your getting this in, and I hope, this was not a waste of time. I hope it was
No,
something that will help us move forward. And then we're meeting again in January, so some of these ideas
That's good.
we can maybe get a little closer to being able to try something.
so was just kind of thinking about the complete street piece. So if we have a low volume, low speed road, we're saying that's a higher candidate